Just go to be attended.
I'd like to call to order the meeting of December 15th, 2015. Would you all please stand for the invocation and pledge of allegiance?
We thank you for the privilege to live in your presence and to work with you to build a better community for all of our citizens. Help us to do right and to deal fairly with everyone. Give us faith and courage to put our trust in you. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before I do roll call, I want to ask Dan to swear in.
Would you like to face your colleagues or your employers? Okay, very good. Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that you will uphold the Constitution of the United States of America, the Constitution of the State of Ohio, and the Charter and ordinances of the City of Columbiana, that you will not be influenced by any consideration except that of merit and fitness in the appointment or discharge of employees, that you will not make or authorize the expenditure of public money otherwise than for adequate consideration and efficient service to the municipal corporation, and that you will, in all other respects, faithfully discharge the duties of your office as councilman. If so, say, I do.
I do.
Glad to have you. Thank you very much.
Now roll call.
Everyone have the mic. Becker.
Here.
Sauer.
Here.
McBain.
Here.
Liston.
Here.
Callahan. Here. Noel.
Here.
Blakeman.
Here.
Willard.
Here.
Blaisdell.
Here.
You all received the meeting minutes of December 1st. Any questions or comments on those? If not, I will move right into the reading of communications. And this evening we have 4 letters of interest to read for the vacant seat on the Planning Commission for the City of Columbiana, unexpired term ending December 31st of 2020. The second half of Dick's letter from the last meeting says, I am asking that I be considered to fill the next vacant seat on the City Planning Commission, signed Richard Simpson. We have a letter from Kirby Zellers. This letter represents my interest as a resident of Columbiana in serving on the City Planning Commission to fill any upcoming vacancies. I was born and raised in Columbiana, having graduated in 1965. In 1967, I enlisted in the U.S. Air Force, serving as a geodetic surveyor, providing precise positioning and azimuth origination on ICBM sites in North Dakota. In 1971, after my discharge from the Air Force, I took a position as a geodetic surveyor with the Defense Mapping Agency, now the NGIA. From 1980 to 1986, I worked for Exxon Production Research as a geophysicist, providing technical oversight to contractors, as well as creating standards and specifications for the use of GPS technology in seismic surveys and offshore drilling rig positions. My last federal position was with the National Geodetic Survey. In 1988, I resigned my federal position to start my company. In 1992, I moved from Maryland back to Columbiana and have been here ever since. I feel that I should exercise my civic duty to this city that has provided me with many services and protection. Please find below a brief overview of my background and experience, and it includes a full resume. Next is from C. Tucker Cope Jr., City Council. I'm requesting to be considered as a candidate for the open position on the Planning Commission. I was born and raised in the wonderful small town of Columbiana, and my family has a long history in the community. My grandfather, Charlie Rohr, had a ready-mix concrete company, and my father started a construction company, both which provide me with a deep history of construction. My father also spent 11 years on the Planning Commission of Columbiana. My resume includes an undergraduate and master's degree in civil engineering from the University of Case Western Reserve, graduating cum laude. After completing my college education, I moved around the country until I decided to return to my childhood home in the late 1990s. I received my professional engineer's license in Ohio in the year 2000, Pennsylvania in 2006, and Indiana in 2015. Currently, I'm Vice President of C. Tucker Cope and Associates and also a partner in Engineering Direct LLC. We have developed, designed, and submitted entire site and construction drawings for our numerous projects. I personally have experienced the planning commission reviews of countless different communities in both Ohio and Pennsylvania. In closing, I would like to thank you for taking the time to review my credentials and hope I get a chance to serve my local community. Sincerely, C. Tucker Cope Jr. Last one is Melissa Yakavone. My name is Melissa Yakavone, and I would like to be considered for one of the open positions on the Columbiana Planning Commission for the city of Columbiana. I take great pride in saying that I'm a stay-at-home mother of 3 children, 8 years, 7 years, and 5 years old, who attend Columbiana schools. The city of Columbiana has a good reputation, not only for the great school system, but for also how the city takes care of its residents. Our city is well maintained, and our safety has always been a priority. Considering that I have young children in the schools, Columbiana needs to be and also needs to stay open-minded to younger generations as well as future generations to come. It is very important to see these children grow up and consider keeping residency here after graduation. I know that any student in any grade can tell you how proud they are to be a Clipper. The growth of Columbiana is very important to what we can offer to our current residents and to the future residents as well. What I have seen, Columbiana is doing so and continues to be on the right track. I feel that I would be a great candidate because I care what type of environment my children are growing up in. Not only does it take parents to help raise a child, also the city can make an impression. As you can imagine with 3 children, my list of what I can do is endless. I'm very open-minded to opinions, organized, I know how to multitask, and I'm very dedicated at what I do. I'm the type of person that will get a job done, not to its minimum, but to the very best that I can in my abilities. I would like to thank you for taking the time to read this. I hope that I've made an impression on how dedicated I am to this city. Melissa Yakavone. We'll deal with that in new business. We received Planning Commission meeting minutes of December 8th, 2015. Any comments on those? If not, we will move into recognition of persons desiring to appear. First is Attorney Robert Bouchard regarding the quiet zone.
I know some of you who were on council before thinking he's back, right? Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for introducing me. For the record, my name is Attorney Robert Bouchard, and I'm here on behalf of Columbiana Buick Cadillac Chevrolet, which, as all of you I'm sure know, is located within your fine city. If I might digress, I was certainly impressed, and I think it's terrific that you have 4 citizens seeking 1 vacant seat. The kind of interest of the citizenry is terrific. In recognition of some of the members of council that were not here, I thought I'd give a brief history. I appeared 2 or 3 times before council last summer in connection with my client's desire to proceed with a project called the quiet zones of the 3 rail crossings, 2 of which lie adjacent to his car dealership. And it was, for all of us, I believe, if I could speak on behalf of the city, a learning experience going through that initial phase of the project. There was a ordinance passed by council that created a fund into which citizens who were in favor of the quiet zone project could contribute. I believe that fund remains. The objection, speaking on behalf of my client, along with several, if not 100, citizens, business owners, etc., is what has turned out to be approximately every 12 minutes there are train horns. And it's a disruption to the business. Last summer, when we started this venture and got into some of the numbers, there was a approximate figure of $195,000 estimated at that point. What I've come to learn is it's possible, based on other quiet zones that exist across the state, that that figure might be inaccurate, it might be too high. what I've learned is you don't know the exact cost of creating 3 quiet zones because the railroad itself, Norfolk and Southern, hasn't really been engaged to this point to determine what engineering is necessary to maintain the safety standards that it requires, as well as the other oversight agencies in the state and on the federal level. I mentioned that potential inaccuracy because I'm told that the city manager, Mr. Willard, had a delegation of some of council, I'm not sure who, and they did a field trip up to the Cleveland area. I believe it was Brook Park, Berea, that general area, and saw for themselves what quiet zones consist of, and then told that there are some that simply have a no train horn warning sign to those that come in contact with the crossing itself. Back last summer, council voted and decided to table an ordinance that would have given Mr. Willard the authority to proceed with the project, and that was basically because of the lack of funding. And again, at that point in time, it was believed to be $195,000. It could be substantially less, depending on what the engineering that Norfolk and Southern performed. In the process of tabling that ordinance that would have authorized Mr. Willard to proceed forward with the project, there was an indication, very unofficial, that if funds amounting to 75% of the project were identified and brought to the project, then the city would consider at that point contributing funds necessary to complete the project. And again, I emphasize that that was very unofficial, but 75% was the goal. At that point in time last summer, the Columbiana Community Foundation was involved. It met in July. It said in a letter to the city that additional study and additional information was desired by the foundation before it would proceed further with the application. There was another application filed with Omega, that is an agency down in Columbus that funds projects like these. So, having taken up probably more time than I hoped, and you hoped as well, I'm here again in December of 2015, hoping and asking, urging council to consider authorizing your city manager to reboot, if you will, the project and proceed with application to the Columbiana Community Foundation. That application needs to be filed by the end of this month. Proceed with an application to Omega down in Columbus to renew that application for funding. We've identified, since I was here in last summer, there are other sources out there. A woman by the name of Kathy Stout with the Ohio Rail Commission has been, I've talked to her once and intend to follow up, and I know that Lance has been in touch with her, that perhaps could be a great source, if not funding, identifying where there might be some state and federal funding available. We have the continued support of Congressman Bill Johnson in the project. And recently, anonymous donors have come forward and preliminarily indicated a willingness to donate to the project, again, assuming that collectively there are sufficient funds. We don't know how much money we need until the notice of intent is filed by the city. That's, I should mention too that Mr. Willard engaged with an attorney, Mike Dolan, up in Cleveland, who is economic development official, I believe, with the city of Brook Park. Very knowledgeable about quiet zones, the process, and getting them approved. He shared with me, and I know he has shared previously with Mr. Willard, guides that, and the Code of Federal Regulations which govern how these projects will proceed and how they're approved. The review of those guides makes it clear that the first step is the notice of intent that has to be filed with the railroad, with ODOT and other agencies. And then, it's my understanding, Norfolk and Southern also get that notice of intent. They need to do the engineering, because no two crossings are alike. They're similar but not alike. So, that's what's necessary. And again, in closing, I appreciate the opportunity that you've given me to speak on behalf of my client, and urge you as a body to seriously consider authorizing your city manager to proceed forth, and certainly any help that I can give Mr. Willard, as he well knows, and the city, I'm there to help. With that, I'll answer any questions. If there are no questions, I wish everybody a Merry Christmas.
Any questions? I have just one. If we would, I don't know, I'm ready to direct this to from a legal standpoint, but if we were to file a motion of intent and we end up, that starts the engineering.
Notice of intent?
Yeah, and if we start this engineering process and we find that it costs $300,000, we don't have to proceed with that intent. We're, I'm asking, I don't know.
No, I mean, it would get the process going, but, you know, you could turn it down. But I think that there needs to be some type of consensus that if they would accept it and it was, you know, you have to have some relative comfort of how much it would cost and how much you'd be willing to go, because none of us want to waste anybody's time.
Sure.
If we start, and the railroad does their engineering, or starts their engineering, who pays for that time?
It's my understanding, if I may,
Sure.
that Norfolk and Southern has a department that does nothing but this type of engineering for quiet zones.
I'm sure that's true, but if they're gonna do an engineering evaluation for us, are they gonna eat the cost of that, or do we have to?
It's my understanding that it's done in-house. I asked that question of Mr. Dolan, Attorney Dolan, in Cleveland, and he indicated that it's done in-house. Do you know otherwise?
I think that the initial calculations may be free. And I've worked on that same calculator that I think that they're gonna end up using, that get that threshold index down that we all have available to us. It's under the Federal Railroad Administration. And, you know, currently the hazard index is about 49,000. You need to get down to a certain level before it even qualifies for the quiet zone. And, you know, I've used these supplemental safety measures that are used as a tool that they use to calculate these. And I can't find any supplemental safety measures that'll work other than the raised median that are cost effective. You know, Attorney Bouffard referenced a crossing in North Olmsted that simply has a sign that says quiet zone. I do not believe that would work, since I use the calculator that they're gonna be using, you know, to figure out what we need here. And as one of the major reasons or major things that everybody brought up is the Elm Street crossing. The raised median is not gonna work for council, or didn't work for prior council anyways, because records would be affected by that. The
So that would be a four-gate crossing at that one, and that could potentially drive up that cost. So they may come back, and I think they would do that initial engineering calculation for free, but then everything else, they're going to create an account that we would have to fund.
Assuming council would approve.
Sure.
And we're obviously not asking for that approval now. That would be premature, but more so an expression of support by council to authorize the city manager to get the process started, and then, like all other projects, give status reports from time to time. And it's a long process too. Attorney Dolan said that there's such thing as railroad time. It's a little bit different than the time we're used to, but
Do you see a legal reason
As long as we don't commit any funds,
Right.
and as long as the notice of intent to proceed is conditional, I haven't spoken to Mr. Dolan, but I know that Lance has. And as long as that is in place, I wouldn't be concerned about it. But if it was just a blanket notice to proceed with, I think Skip raises a good point. We certainly don't want to assume the cost of engineering for a failed project.
Sure.
So as long as that was done, it would be fine as far as I'm concerned.
You know, one other factor from the local research that I've done is that once the crossings go in, for instance, if it's the four-gate crossing, we're not only responsible for putting the crossing in or paying for the crossing to go in, we're also responsible for the additional maintenance on the additional gates. And so that's something the council would have to realize, that there could be potential longer-term costs that we would have to plan for. And I would assume that would also apply even if the raised median, if something would happen to it, if there may be additional costs to maintain or deal with snow removal or whatever that we'd have to deal with in those cases too. So I think there's a lot here that needs to be considered, and we would, you know, I have no problem with proceeding and looking at it, but I think we need to fully understand what all the costs are, what all the ramifications are to the local businesses. I mean, even the dealership, they currently go out one driveway and cross Main Street, go over to their body area with the raised area. They're no longer going to be able to do that. I don't know if they recognize that that's going to be an issue for them as well as it is for Rikers. But we really need to get into the whole thing and find out what all the issues are and whether or not it really makes sense. If someone who crosses those crossings on a fairly regular basis while walking, you know, I know the gates are there, you hear the gates coming down, the bells and everything go off with them, and I assume those would still continue. But as a pedestrian on Elm Street, the buildings are so close to the track, it would be very, very easy for someone to walk across those tracks not realizing the train was coming. Except, you know, where the gates don't exist. If there were four gates, that wouldn't be a problem. But anyway, that's.
Well, that's an excellent point. Lance, if you could correct me if I'm wrong, I thought I read somewhere where the municipality is responsible for cost of maintaining its area of the right-of-way, and the railroad is responsible for maintaining equipment in its portion of the right-of-way. Does that sound right?
Yes, but it still comes from the same account, which we would have to fund.
When you say the money to build it, Mr. McVeigh was talking about maintenance,
Yeah.
ongoing maintenance.
The way I understood it was, it still comes from that same account.
Okay.
So although they would maintain their portion of it, we still have to pay for it.
I believe so. But, I mean, that's gonna be a small portion compared to what the price could be, right? And I guess I would say that, you know, it was stated that, you know, the cost could be considerably less than $194,000. It could also be considerably more, because when they visited this in 2006, I believe Mr. Bichel had something to do with it at the time, because I saw some folders, and, you know, I have a folder that they were involved back then, and that estimate was $900,000. But that was just way back then. And considering different safety measures, the price has come down.
Well, I was with Lance at Brookport, and there's a whole gambit of different, and how they got away with just putting a sign up that says no train whistle, it's beyond me. But I saw it, it was there, and it was a crossing, it just reminded you of downtown Columbiana. But I think, if I understood him right, a lot of that quiet zone up there happened when the railroad, Conrail or something was being bought out, and the communities kind of held them hostage for the quiet zones somehow or other. The way I kind of understood that. Now, that's how it was, I don't know for sure. Sounded that way to me. We don't have that advantage of holding the railroad hostage.
Sounds like they didn't do a good job of that either, if all they got was a sign.
Yeah.
Good point. Well, thank you again. And be available in the future for any other activity that you may think is necessary to help.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else desiring to speak to council this evening? If not, we'll move into manager's update.
Matt, Doug, and I met with engineering firm GPD about the new water plant generator, and we are getting that ready, and it's going to be submitted to the Department of Industrial Compliance, and that is part of the EPA's requirement as they're reviewing all the blueprints right now of the water plant. They've asked us to provide some more details to them, not only from Arcadis, but from Matt and I, and we're trying to get that done so we can start advertising. We were hoping late December, but we haven't got all the data to the EPA as requested yet. We're still working on it. So hopefully sometime in January. The administration building was experiencing some kind of like electrical glitches, and I just wanted to kind of thank Graph Electric and the city electric crew. Graph came in, they were actually installing an LED light back in that upper corner right there, right above Dick. And we noticed the lights were flickering, so he checked all the terminals in here and said, hey, it's gotta be outside. And so Doug had that crew in that was using that gun with the images, and he shot the where the power comes into and they saw a little hot connection, and sure enough, that was it. It was just then they're vibrating just a little bit, and just the little tiny flickers. So that was kind of neat. It was a group effort, but Graf said it's outside, and Doug found it within an hour. So. We also had to replace a couple UPS systems for battery backup on our computers, and the new router is being replaced here at the city admin building. We met with John from Howes and Baird to discuss the North Waterline project, and the survey crews are finishing up. We're also been in contact with Arcadis, who designed that first part of the project, and that's going well. Even though we're a little behind, we hope to get into the EPA sometime in January. First aid kits were evaluated throughout the entire city and meet OSHA standards, and we replace kits and order supplies as needed, and that company will come in every month. The beta testing for the C project should start any day, and anybody that's interested, I've said this to the last couple of council members. I know, Brian, I think you did ask. I think Rick, I talked to him today, and also the chamber, I was gonna reach out to them and have April take a look at it. So it'll be, you know, maybe 5 or 6 of us looking at it first before we unveil it, you know, just to get the small glitches on it. But it's pretty powerful, software. It's pretty neat. It's gonna have on basically everything that Larry Casiva shows. Park and Cemetery, they got caught up with leaves, and they were actually able to mulch leaves. They winterized the bathrooms and split wood for the pavilion for the Joy of Christmas out there. And they still have some pavilion rentals. Electric department, we have a company in right now looking at preventative maintenance and reconditioning our voltage regulators at both the substations, so that's really good that we're out there. We heard recently that we had already lined this company up to come out, but one of the our AMP communities had contacted us and said they were having problems, and we had already done it, so that's good. And to be without a voltage regulator is a bad place to be, so we were glad that we got on that, and the reconditioning, all of them. The street department, they were helping the wastewater plant out on a project for the Manor lift station, doing some improvements there. And the street department has started to install some of those new reflective signs throughout the city. And we hope to get that, well, that's gonna be a long project, but we'll be working on it for the next 6 months at least. Those harmonic filters down there at the wastewater plant were installed, and we've got, we're monitoring them now. We're letting the GPD know to see how those work. Those were taking little spikes out of the system that were being caused by variable frequency drives at each of the pumps throughout the plant. It was causing some major headaches. Water plant installed several hydrants, and they performed several taps, and they worked on a carbonation unit. And I don't see anybody here, but kind of a neat story. We had a kind of a group effort here out at Old Saybrook. There was some water pressure issues, which we know we're replacing the water line. And I just spoke to the lady that we helped out, and we think we kind of bridge the gap between now and when we get the line in. But there was actually a problem that we were able to identify in the house that has actually increased her pressure to kind of get her through. She had to hire a plumber, but it's helped immensely, so she was pretty excited about that. It's you know, it's better than a lot better than it was, but we know
Pretty bad.
we still know that there's room for improvement.
I didn't see it, but
Yeah, it was barely coming out her shower, and now it's shooting all the way across the shower. So.
that was one of my first campaign stops that I've heard about it.
Yeah.
I think the neighbors of Skip.
Oh, okay.
You're kind of catty-cornered across the street.
Did you have problems, Skip, at your house? Or?
I don't.
Okay.
I have a ranch.
Yeah.
And it seems to be the problems that they're seeing there in different houses. It's on the second level.
Yeah.
The lady right next door to me, she can't wash dishes and take a shower.
Yeah. So hopefully they can hook up with the other neighbors, and maybe we need to go
Sure.
door to door.
You're on garden hooks for Skip now.
Well, you know, and that's what we were kind of thinking, but we did some troubleshooting, and you know, the first floor, it was mainly with hot water. You know, the cold water was good, and
You could turn the hot water on and sink in the shower at the same time, and there was nothing.
but the cold water had come on, so.
The people next to me, they tried to get their house pressure washed in the
Yeah.
summer, and there was not enough pressure in the lines, even with their pressure washers.
Yeah.
They couldn't keep up with it, and they had to stop.
Yeah. So hopefully this helps her out until the water line comes and actually makes pressure better.
And we're supposed to bid on that water line.
Yeah, I was just saying that they just finished the survey crews just are finishing up right now. Probably there are know if you've seen them out there, but between Oakmont, all, to Sable. They've been working out there, so. Yeah, I would say, we're gonna be giving up the plans to the EPA probably early January. That's all I've got, Brian.
You'll receive the bill list for December 15th. Any comments or questions on those? Now we'll move into old business due to the length of the ordinances. Can I have a motion to read by title only?
So moved.
Second.
Deanna?
Becker?
Yes.
Souter?
Yes.
McBain?
Yes.
Liston?
Yes.
Challenger? Yes. Nanette?
Yes.
Ordinance number 15-0-2848, second reading. An ordinance setting a salary and establishing a position and other conditions of employment for the city manager of the city of Columbiana.
So moved.
Second.
Any comments? Deanna?
Souter?
Yes.
McBain?
Yes.
Liston?
Yes.
Challenger? Yes. Noel?
Yes.
Becker?
Yes.
Ordinance number 15-0-2849, second reading. An ordinance amending appropriation ordinance 15-0-2803 by adding $24,000 in the general fund, $26,000 in the cemetery fund, $53,000 in the park fund, $15,000 in the street fund, $60 in the enforcement and education fund, $15,000 in the sewer fund, $3,000 in the income tax fund, $24,000 in the electric fund, $2,000 in the guaranteed deposits fund, and $2,800 in the Firestone Cemetery Trust Fund, all for the payment of current expenses as they may arise.
So moved.
Second.
Any comments? Deanne?
McBain?
Yes.
Liston?
Yes.
Challenger? Yes. Noel?
Yes.
Becker?
Yes.
Souter?
Yes.
Ordinance number 15-0-2850, second reading. An ordinance to make temporary appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures of the city of Columbiana, state of Ohio, for the first 3 months of the year 2016, ending March 31st, 2016.
So moved.
Second.
Any comments? Deanne?
Liston?
Yes.
Challenger? Yes. Noel?
Yes.
Becker?
Yes.
Souter?
Yes.
McBain?
Yes.
Moving on to new business, I need a motion to appoint a member to the vacant seat on the planning commission for the city of Columbiana to the unexpired term of December 31st, 2020.
So moved.
Second.
This is filling Rick's vacated seat.
This would be,
The two
Yeah,
vacancies
Vic Simpson.
to fulfill. One is a council appointment, and the other is a citizen appointment. And you can fill both if you wish.
And then there'll be one more citizen appointment in January.
yeah, and we'll, as we, as Vic stated last time, we'd be accepting letters still up until the 30th. And that'll give us enough time to get them for the first council meeting in January.
Was there any motions?
There was a motion and a second, but who were they motioning to appoint?
Yeah. Right. Well, I'll make the motion that we appoint Rick to fill the council seat. And you want to do one at a time?
Do one at a time.
One at a time.
Haven't in the past, we've always done like a,
Vote.
took a vote and you tabulated them on the,
We've done it on the board at times,
I think that would make more sense.
probably for the public seat, but for the council seat,
Oh, yeah.
I would say that would just be a regular vote for the council seat, but I can do the public one up on the board.
second that.
Any other comments? Deanne?
Challenger?
Yes.
Noel?
Abstain.
Becker?
Yes.
Sauer?
Yes.
McBain?
Yes.
Liston?
Yes.
And normally when we write them on the board, then council members vote by secret ballot, none of them have been announced. We have ballot papers up there, there used to be some lying up there.
I can go get some minutes. The markers are right there next to me.
It's been the practice that the council members write who they are voting for in their name also on the ballot. Becker for Simpson. Souter for Simpson. McBain for Simpson. Liston for Simpson. Challenger for Simpson. And Noel for Simpson.
Will we be keeping these same letters?
Yes.
Also. Okay, we'll move into council comments.
I've got a couple of them this evening. Barry, I know this is your last one, and you're probably jumping for joy, just like the car thing, but in the last couple of years of serving with you, it's been a privilege.
Thank
You've got a lot of good knowledge and brought out a lot of things, and personally, thank you. And the other one was, I know a lot of you have been doing some reading, but if you haven't had the opportunity, take a look at the little red and white paper that comes around from the school system. They did excellent, and the testing scores. Testing takes a lot of time away from the educational system itself, but yet the kids are able to handle it. It's not just this year that their scores have been maintaining a level and increasing, but they've been for the last 3 or 4 years. And that needs to be brought out of how well our children are doing, along with our staff and the people that are taking care of them and leading it. So I think we should all be thankful.
Yeah, best of the county.
Yes. And I believe when we see the scores come out, we'll probably be high or #1 in Mahoney County. That takes some time.
Sure. And they produced a road scholar.
I had the privilege of having her, and I can say she's a very pleasant young lady and well deserving of it. It didn't go to her head. That girl worked her way all the way through, day in and day out, and a couple of jobs to go with it.
Fantastic.
Mike?
Yep.
There was an article in the paper about the Ohio checkbook, and it seems to me that we had made a motion to put our Columbiana's
Yeah,
information on there. Could you give us a status update on that?
yeah, I'm still working with SSI, we should be, it should be on there real soon.
Okay.
Anyone else?
I do, first off, Mary, it's been a nice evening working with you. The area schools, they put some boxes there to pick up things like magazines, newspapers, things like that. And that money's gonna go back directly to the school, so I just wanna ask that we support that. And I'd like to thank the mayor and the city manager for taking the time to going up to Capizello's house and taking a look at the problem, and then going one step further and actually coming up with a solution. So I thank them for that.
Lance was diagnosing her problems at the house. We didn't get it, we got our hands dirty.
Yep.
We had hoses, water flying out of the basement. It worked.
Appreciate that.
I would just like to thank the members of this council for appointing me to this position. I appreciate that appointment. And I hope that I can continue in some way the tradition of good leadership in the city. And I think a lot of all of you, I respect a lot of you, even Mary, as she steps out and all the work she's done. And I just look forward to this opportunity. We have some really big shoes to fill that have left the council, and so it's going to be a challenge, but I hope we can meet that challenge. Thank you.
The last thing I would ask, so that we don't beat a dead horse and we don't not talk about something for 6 months, would there be any benefit from an intent standpoint for council to do something with an intent on this silent crossing position, so long as we cap it with no financial means tied to it, so that we can get a clear picture of what we're looking at? Or would it, I'm just asking, I don't.
I would suggest you give Lance an opportunity to talk to the
Okay.
representative and assure himself and you folks that there is no
Cost.
monetary requirement. And if that's possible, then he can report back to you, and you can authorize him to take the action or ratify what he
And just as a footnote, I'm fully prepared to fill out the grants for both the Columbiana Foundation and Omega Foundation, and that doesn't
Require that.
you know, it's, it would be good, you know, I don't believe we'd get any further unless we did something, you know, we'd be in the same boat, but I can get that ball rolling as far as, I can just resubmit the application, and we'll do that difficult.
You require authorization from us to submit those applications?
No.
Okay.
I had thought that we already, back way when this discussion began, that we had given Lance.
Well, we did, but then they were turned down, so the question is, we're going
All right, we got you.
new application.
And just for the timing of it, as far as, you know, discussing the letter of intent, we can still meet that December 31st deadline. I talked to Pat today, and so she's, you know, expecting to hear from me one way or another tomorrow. So.
Well, if you go off and take a look at it, and then come back to us and say, yeah, there's no monetary problems, that's gonna take into January.
Right, and that's why I can go ahead and fill out these grants, you know, independent of that.
Okay, you don't need the intent to any of the
Correct, correct.
Sounds good. Need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Eric,